the end of March, 1st of April 2020, Lieutenant General Williams, then the director of DLA, reached out to me down here at Richmond and asked if I'd be willing to go up and help Admiral Polopchek at the time, who was running the supply chain task force as part of the White House task force for COVID-19 response. Admiral P was, is what we affectionately call him, was working with a small team to work supply chain constraints and industrial base expansion across the whole government. What we found is that the United States needed a lot of personal protective equipment, it needed ventilators, needed pharmaceuticals to combat COVID. What we found, though, unfortunately, is that at least when it came to PPE, 85% of it was made overseas. And as you can imagine, if they weren't fighting COVID themselves, well, it probably wouldn't have been a problem. But they were. So as we were trying to get as much PPE as we could to our frontline medical providers, we also recognized the gaps. Again, we don't make it here in the United States. And so how do we make it here in the United States? And so we worked industrial base expansion projects so that now that we're self-sufficient for N95 manufactured in the U.S., we're self-sufficient for surgical and procedural masks. We will be self-sufficient for nitrile gloves in about another 12 months. And we're working on disposable gowns, too, that are going to get us there. Those were the focus areas. So it required building visibility because, believe it or not, it's a very fragmented industry, and we, as the federal government, did not have visibility over where stuff was, how to get it to where it needs to go. So it required a lot of industry partnerships, probably partnerships that I would argue were unheard of, to where distributors, the medical distributors, were willing to provide us data on where they're shipping things. So were the group purchasing organizations. And we leveraged all that to make sure they were sending it to the right place at the right time. Because, again, you don't have enough, but yet you got places like New York City at the time, Los Angeles, and then it gravitated throughout the year to where eventually the whole country was inflamed at one point, but making sure that we could move those products around. And then in the fall, we got a little bit of relief because of all those industrial expansion projects we did. They were finally starting to turn out product so we could make it here ourselves and get the items to where we needed them to go. It was challenging, too, because it was an interagency organization. And so you had different cultures. We have our DOD culture, our DLA culture, and then we have a FEMA culture. We have a Health and Human Services culture, and then we had some commerce folks, totally different culture, and then others. And so you have to quickly bring a team together and figure out what you think you can affect and what you can do. I will never forget the folks that we lost, not both just in our workforce, but we had many people who were touched by COVID and they lost family members, whether they were extended or mothers, fathers, and brothers. And so I would sign condolences letters to those folks, and that's just very heartbreaking. From a COVID task force standpoint, I think every day was a new adventure. And so there were many glad moments when you would get investment projects approved or investment projects would come online. Like in September when we started making, when 3M was able to start making all the N95 masks here in the U.S., they achieved their first goal. That was exciting. We were getting 13 million more masks a month. And we worked to make sure that they didn't go to the Strategic National Stockpile. We made sure they were going to frontline medical workers. The fact that we would get calls from hospitals and to let us know that the efforts that the whole government was working were paying off, and both medical workers were able to rotate the PPE, they felt safer, those were the best moments of my life. But I'll admit too, I mean, a really disheartening piece, because we would watch this daily. You watch the statistics. So you look at the number of cases, infections in the nation, you look at the number of hospitalizations, and you look at the number of deaths. And I think one of the hardest things, especially as a military member, is how do I stop the deaths? And just knowing that was still going to be a struggle continues to stay with us. We talked about moments to remember. I think one of my proud moments will always be just the people I worked with within DLA. And the fact that we were always so mission-focused in the can-do attitude, it was never no. You supported the entire nation. And that can never be lost on the DLA workforce. And that is a badge of honor that we should carry for the next, forever, as part of our legacy and part of our lineage. And we will be captured in every after-action report as a success story for being able to step in and provide the capabilities that other government agencies did not have internally. And if we had relied just on that sole capability, ultimately the American people would have suffered. And so DLA was able to step into that gap and support the entire United States. And it's not often you get to say that.